Afternoon, everybody. Like I told again, I just want to encourage you guys to start filling up these things, okay? The group list, what you can basically get from your week 1 module. So you can see that in this week's, if I minimize this thing, you can access this group list from this Google Sheet for group arrangement, okay? Because your assignment 1 and assignment 2 is you can do it in a group of two members basically. And then the assignment 1, like I told you again, is supposed to be distributed next week, but it's distributed starting from this week in order for you to give extra time for you to start doing your assignment. You don't want to do it in the last minute because this assignment is quite lengthy if you want to solve everything, and it requires you to think a lot of requires you to do a lot of derivations and then check back your physical with the physical significance of your system, substitute back, and so on. So this is not something that you can do in I think in a 3 days or 4 days. You may want to give yourself at least 2 or 3 weeks to do these things, okay, continuously. I have gone through the contents of the unit yesterday, so I don't think I need to go back to the content of the unit again, but rather you can see this one is actually from 2020. Okay, I just put it in here in order for you to see, but the content should be similar with what I gave yesterday. This is week drop-in session part 1, so I put it in here. So those that did not attend my session yesterday can go here and see what we discussed yesterday, and the today's sessions we will put it in this drop-in session later after we finish this drop-in session. Okay, now all the derivations all the materials are given in your module 1 already. Okay, so the readings that you will need to cover is basically the Byron Bird Transfer Phenomena. Okay, the book is also given, the link already given in the announcement. So for those that have not downloaded this one, you should download this one. Okay, so this is a reminder for the first synchronous meeting. So the book, you can download it from this link in here, and I have said that I will remove this I think if let me log out in here, if I log out in here, then I will give you the same view that you guys have basically. So these two books, one is mathematics, the other one is the transfer phenomena book. So this is for personal use, and you can download it as soon as possible. And then what is that? The link is from here, and then week 1 activities and everything. Okay, so the week 1 introductions in here, it gives you the access to the slides, to the modeling level 1 and 2, and another example of the different modeling levels. And then in my video in here, I have discussed in detail what are the derivations for the modeling level 1 example and modeling level 2 example. I will not discuss I will not derive everything through direct screenwriting as I did already in the video, but today I will just discuss on the detail of the modeling level. Okay, so here are the first thing. This example in here is concerned with the problem of a heat removal from a bed of hot solvent by immersing steel rods into the bed and allowing the heat to dissipate from the hot solvent bed through the rod and then to the atmosphere. Imagine if you have a hot coffee. You have a hot coffee, and then you want to cool it faster. If you just let it let that cup of hot coffee to just stand by in the table, that will take very long time. But if you put in like for example a steel spoon into that coffee, then it will make the temperature gets colder quicker. Okay, why? Because if you only let your cup of coffee, the hot cup of coffee, sit there, then there will be only one pathway of the heat transfer from the liquid to the atmosphere, because atmosphere has a colder temperature than the cup of coffee. For example, we assume that this is a very hot coffee. Okay. Now, if you put in a steel spoon into your hot coffee, you have two different pathway. Okay, you have the pathway from here to the atmosphere, which is very small, because as you can see that the heat transfer between these two will be very small. But if you have this, let's say this steel, what will happen is you have a heat transfer from the hot coffee into the steel, and then the steel will have a conductions to the top, and then there will be a convections or the interface between the steel with the air. Okay, that will make it much faster. So the first problem in the different modeling level is the problem of a heat removal from a bed of hot solvent by immersing steel rod. Okay, so this is we call a problem of heat removal because, of course, the first thing that we need to do in the transfer phenomena is to make a diagram of your system. You need to make a diagram of your system. In here, you let you put it as a beaker in here with the rod that you put it in here, and then you start on putting a diagrammatic, like how much of, like the length that the length of the rod that is immersed in the hot solvent will be L1. The one that is exposed to the air will be L2. Okay, and then at the same time you take the temperature of the hot solvent as T1, temperature of the air as T0. Okay, and then the diameter of your rod will be 2R. You want to use a simple geometry in here, so you don't want to deal with much more complex geometry at this point of time. So it's called a problem of the heat removal. That means that implies that the T1 should be much higher than the T0. If not, then the heat transfer will not happen. Heat transfer happen because there is a difference in terms of the temperature. Mass transfer happen because there is a difference in concentration. Momentum transfer happen because there is a difference in velocity. Okay, so in the real nature, the nature always seeks balance. So whatever that is in excess will go into will equalize each other. That's basically the nature of the system and everything that that chemical engineering deals with. Okay, so in level 1 we start with the simple assumption. So let us assume that the rod temperature is uniform, that is from the bed to the atmosphere. So we took the rod temperature all over the place in here as the same. So the temperature in here will be the same with the temperature in here, will be the same with the temperature in here, will be the same with the temperature in here, will be the same with the temperature in here, will be the same with the temperature. We don't know what this temperature is. We define it as T. So this T is a unknown quantity that we will try to derive from our transport phenomena formulation. Okay. So because this T is the same all over your system, that means this is a lump model. For those that have done my process modeling, you know a lump model. Lump model meaning that the model where the property does not vary as a function of position. Okay, so everything is the same. So this is essentially the simplest model that people can do. And then we ignore the heat transfer at the two flat ends of the rod. So the one that is rastered in here in blue is the two flat ends of the rod. So we don't care so much about the heat transfer in here and in here. You can do, but that will only give you complications in the equations later on. And this, since this part is very small compared to the surface area, the lateral surface area, the surroundings of your cylinder. So for example, if I show you here, then these are the cylindrical surface, right? The cylindrical surface in here has a much larger surface area in comparison to the surface area on the top or in the bottom. So that's why we don't really care so much about this and this. So we just ignore that, right? Okay. Then the next assumption is that we have an overall heat transfer coefficient which is known and constant. So we have two heat transfer coefficient. The heat transfer coefficient between the solid in here, between the solid rod in here with the liquid, and then the heat transfer coefficient between the solid with the atmosphere, right? And we assume that it is constant. And then there will be no solvent evaporates from the solvent air interface. So what does this mean? So if your solvent evaporate, then the L1 will change with time. That means your L2 will change with time. If we simply assume that this one does not evaporate, meaning that this L1 and L2 is not a function of time. So that will make our life more easy, right? You guys can stop me at any time I talk in here, so that you can interrupt me if you feel that anything is unclear. I'm just trying to repeat again, but I will not go into the calculations. Okay. Then we go with the simple steady-state heat balance on the rod. Then why do we call it steady-state heat balance? Because we don't care about accumulation. The accumulation is zero basically. Okay, so when you say that there is no accumulation, meaning that the property is not a function of time. Okay, if the property is not a function of time, then it's a steady state, right? And then the assumption A in here brings a consequences, because the temperature is the same all over the rod, meaning that our model is not a differential model, but it is a finite model. Okay, then we care about two entities in here. As a result, our system basically becomes this rod in here, right? We have a heat transfer in. The heat transfer in from the half portions of the rod. So the one that goes in is from this part, from the part that is exposed from the liquid to the cylinder. So that's going through the lateral surface. Okay, this will go in. The one that goes out is from here, from the part that are immersed, that are exposed to the air. So this part is from the to the air. Okay, because this part in here is in contact with the air. This part in here is in contact with the hot solvent. Okay, that can be imagined as a hot coffee, for example. So then we need to put in this overall heat transfer coefficient. Since it's coming from here, so we care about, we focus on this part in here, the half rod in here. HL is your overall heat transfer coefficient multiplied by the surface area of your rod that are exposed to the hot solvent. So imagine if you have this, okay, the surface area in here is the one that is surrounding this thing in here, the surface area. So that's why that will be a circumference surface of your circle, which is 2 pi r, multiplied by the height, so L1. And then we multiply by the temperature. So this one, you know that T1 is higher than T. So we need to use a logic, because T1 is much higher than the T0, and then this steel rod is immersed into the hot solvent. Then it will be reasonable for us to think that the T will be somewhere, will have a value between T1 and T0, right? So the heat transfer will be T1 minus T, and then minus out. Now out is the overall heat transfer coefficients from for this in here, for the heat transfer from the rod into the air. So Hg multiplied by the surface area of the upper part of the rod that are exposed to the air. So this one will be 2 pi r L2 multiplied by the temperature of the rod minus the T0. Then this will be equal to 0. Okay. Now, we assume that everything is known except for the temperature. So the temperature of the rod at this particular point is a variable, right? Very important for us to do is that we check the unit of the overall heat transfer coefficient multiplied by the surface area multiplied by the Kelvin. So if you cancel this meter square with meter square, Kelvin with Kelvin, then the unit for this balance will be joule per second, right? Joule per second. Then you can go into the operation. Basically in here is just separating the known term into the left hand side, with separating the one that contains the unknown term T into the right hand side. Okay, Then as a result, you get these equations of this T. So you can get your temperature of the rod by knowing the value of the overall heat transfer coefficient in liquid, the length of the liquid immersed into the solvent, the overall heat transfer coefficient in the gas phase, the length of the rod that are exposed to the air, and then you need to know also the temperature of your T1, T0. Okay, so this T1 and T0 will be you can use a thermocouple or you can use a thermometer to measure this T1 and the T0 in real experiments. Okay. Now you can define a new variable called this alpha. This alpha in here is basically expressing the contributions from the lower part of your rod with respect to the upper part of your rod. Because this HL in here comes from the bottom part of your rod, this L1 in here is coming from the length of the rod that is exposed to the solvent, right? So this basically just expressing the contributions from the top part of the rod with respect to the from the bottom part of the rod with respect to the top part of the rod, right? Now, up to this point, any questions, you guys? Anything unclear? Saif, everything clear up to this point?
For level 1B, what did you write after the heat transfer of the 2 what?
This is the surface area of this thing in here. So the surface area on top in here is a pi r square, right? And then you have 2. So that will be 2 multiplied by pi r square.
Ah, okay.
Get it now?
Ah, yes.
Alvin, Jonathan, everything is clear up to this point, yeah? It's straightforward up to this point. Then the heat transfer rate comes next. So after you know the temperature, what are the other quantities that you want to know? So you want to know how much is the heat transfer rate. Either you can get it either from here or from the top in here. So the heat transfer rate will be equal to this quantity in here. So this quantity in here is basically the heat transfer rate, okay? And the quantity in here should be equal to the quantity in here because you don't have an accumulation. So your heat transfer rate is basically equal to this term in here. And it should also be equal to this term in here. Now, in my derivations in here, I only derive it using this one. I don't derive it using this one. You can prove that even if you derive using this one, the final result should still be the same. So it probably something that you want to take it as a homework exercise for your take-home test later on, for the take-home test 1 or take-home test 2, right? Okay, so from these particular equations in here, what we don't know was the T. That we now know because we use energy balance already. So we can simply substitute this T in here. And then with all the operations that we put in here, we finally get these equations in here. Correct? We finally get this equation in here. Okay. Now, we also have defined this quantity called alpha in here. There are two ways to express alpha. There is alpha, I can express it like this, or I can express it like this. Okay. It wouldn't be matter in here, it's just I'm dividing the denominator with the HGL2 and the denominator with the HGL2. For this form in here, I simply divide the denominator by HLL1 and the denominator by the HLL1. Okay. Then I go a little bit more detail into this second part of this form in here. So you can convert this form of this Q into equal to 2 pi r HGL2 T1 minus T0 divided by 1 plus 1 over L. Now, like I told you again, HL over L1, alpha is basically expressing the contributions from the top divided by the contributions from the bottom divided by the contributions from the top. Now, if you are a very good chemical engineer, then you will know that by by feeling, or by, if you go into the transfer phenomena book, or by the intuitions, then the overall heat transfer coefficient in liquid is always better than the overall heat transfer coefficients in the gas, right? Because I mean, if you for example you hit the liquid, then the liquid will hit much faster than if you hit the air. Everybody agree with me up to this point?
Yes.
So this is a physical intuition, meaning that the transfer phenomena is something that you need to put intuition. So that's why we tend to assume that this alpha is very large. Okay, so if alpha is very large, then it can be simplified into this form in here. Why? Because when alpha becomes higher, so for example, if I assume that this alpha is 100, so then this term in here will be 1 plus 1 divided by 100. 1 divided by 100 becomes 0.01. So 1.01 will not be much different with 1.1. 1 is not much different with 1.01. That is if it is if alpha is 100, if the alpha is 10,000, that will be even more smaller, and if the alpha is 1 million, that will be much smaller again. So we can just disregard this thing. So that means we can simplify the heat transfer coefficient into this form in here. Okay, so everybody get me up to this point? So once you inspect these final equations in here, you can see that your Q is pretty much dependent only on your radius of the rod, the overall heat transfer coefficients of your atmosphere, which is your gas, basically. This will be an intrinsic properties of your atmosphere, basically, of your gas, whatever the gas is. If it is in air, that means it's pretty much determined by the nitrogen content in the air. And then your L2, in here, your L2 is basically your length of the rod that is exposed to the air, right? So the higher the overall heat transfer coefficient, the higher the heat transfer rate. The more area, the more length of the rod that is exposed to the air, the more heat transfer rate that you will get, right? And then your T1 and T0, normally you don't really deal with these two, because these things is something that are normally depending on your system itself. Okay, so this is reasonable because of what I'm telling you in here, because the HL is normally much larger than the HG, or in the case that the length of the rod immersed into the solvent is much longer than the length of the rod exposed to the atmosphere. Okay, therefore, as a chemical engineer, if you want to increase the heat transfer rate of your rod, what you can do is basically you can steer the air. How did you steer the air? Alvin, do you have any idea? How do you steer the air? Or Jonathan? If I ask you as a chemical engineer, how do you steer the air? What are you gonna do? Alvin, you are there? Can you hear me?
Increasing L2, or
if you want to steer the air, you can use a fan, Alvin. So for example, if you can use a fan, you can put it nearby. You blow the air nearby the hot cup of coffee. That means you are increasing the Hg, right? You agree with me? That will be one way. That will be one way of the steering the air. So that's called the forced convection. You can do that thing. Okay. That will be what we look in here. Okay. So that will basically conclude our level 1 model. So level 1 model is very easy. It's not something that is difficult. It's something that you have done in your process heat transfer. Up to this point, any questions before I continue to level 2? And then I will go into the level 3, basically. I go very slow with you because I just want everybody to digest the concept, because transfer phenomena is basically just a connections between math and the process itself. If you get it correct, like I think from the first 4 or 5 weeks, then should not be too difficult. No questions, huh? Okay, let me carry on to the level 2. So level 2 now. The level 2 in here, we also start with another diagram again. Okay, the diagram is the same, but you see something that is interesting on top in here. So in here, we are relaxing the assumption. By relaxing the assumption, meaning that we make the model becomes much more detailed by one level. Okay, so which assumption that we relax in here is the assumption A of the first model. Okay, let us go back into the assumption A of the first model. The first model is that the rod temperature is uniform from the bed to the atmosphere. So there is no different temperature for the whole rod in here. But for the level 2, we relax this assumption from the interface of the from this part, from the center of the rod, or I would say that this lies in the interface between the liquid with the air to the top. Okay, we want to assume that there is a temperature distribution, so the temperature varies as a function of the length of the rod from this point on to the top point. Okay, so if we are a chemical engineer, we have by physical intuition, we know that the temperature at this particular point should be much higher than the temperature. It should be higher than the temperature in here, and should be higher than the temperature in here. Should be higher than the temperature in here. Should be higher than the temperature in here. Correct? So we want to relax slowly. We want to relax the first assumption in here. Okay. Then that will be. We also assume that the temperature of the rod below the solvent liquid surface, so below this particular point, will be uniform at the value of the T1. Okay, and this is reasonable assumption because the liquid again has a much higher thermal conductivity than air. Okay, we will go with that in your next slide in week 1. We can show that the thermal conductivity of the liquid is normally much higher than the thermal conductivity of the air. However, the thermal conductivity of the liquid dependence with temperature is different with the dependence of the thermal conductivity with temperature for gas. Okay, because I think for liquid normally if you increase the temperature, then the density will decrease. For the gas, it will be on the other hand around. Okay, and you want to check that one in the slide for next week. The remaining 3 assumptions of level 1 model are retained. So then, when we assume that these things are distributed, there is a distributed model. So instead of a model, the level increased to one level higher, become distributed model. But this distributed model is only on the axial direction. When I mention its axial direction, meaning axial is from here to the top. When I said about radial, from here, from the center of the tube to the radially to the outside. Okay, so it's two different. It's two different. You have 2 different coordinates in here. Axial meaning according to the length, and then the radial is meaning from the center of the rod to the outside. So that one is radial direction. Then, since this is a distributed model, meaning that we can take a very small thickness of the rod. So this thing is what we call as a shell, a cylindrical shell of your rod. So the rod in here has a solid face, and this is a part of your system, steel rod. Okay, we take a thickness of delta x in here. Okay, and then we put in a sign in here as x. So the point x equals 0 is at this particular point in here. Okay, the direction of x is taken at that direction, but the location where the position x is equal 0 is at the interface between the air and the solvent. Okay, so this shell is an imaginary entity. You take it because you want to make a model out of this thing. Okay, So you take this as something with the thickness of delta x in here. So of course the beginning will have x, and then the end will have x plus delta x. Okay, and then you start on imagining what happened in here. So you have three processes in here. The first one is the heat conduction in. The second one is the heat conduction out, and then you also have a heat loss outside the cylindrical shell, because there is a contact between this solid circumference surface in here with the air. Okay, up to this point, I hope you get these things correctly. Okay, because this is very important up to this point. So we need to imagine the system, we need to make the diagram, we need to go into the system, and then we start on making the differential balance into the elements of this basically the rod element. And only the temperature within the shell element has a value of T. T is a quantity that is unknown at this particular point, and this temperature in here will vary as a function of X. Okay, this X in here is an arbitrary coordinate. You don't have to take it as an X. You can take it as a Y, you can take it as a Z, or you can even take it as, I don't know, whatever you want to put the name in here. I just noticed, I just take by convention that this X is a distance from this part, from the interface of the air and solvent with the starting point for the shell element. Okay, now we look again, and then we start with the steady state heat balance. But the steady state heat balance in here is now no longer made on the whole rod. Okay, not on the whole rod, but made only on that shell element. Okay, the shell element comes, I think the first time is from the book of this book in here. So this analysis that we use in here is something that comes out from this book, particular transfer phenomena. So this one was created in 1960 by Burt and Stewart and Lightfoot. So ever since that 1960, then this shell element has been used by chemical engineers to tackle a lot of problems in heat transfer, fluid dynamics, and mass transfer. Okay, so then we inspect again the shell balance in here. What do we have in here? The in here is a pi r square multiplied by qx inspected at x. So what do you mean by this pi r square? This pi r square is basically the surface area of your shell element in here. Okay, or if I show you in this camera in here, that will be the surface area in here. Okay, the surface area in here, basically the surface area in here. Okay, that will be what it is. And then multiplied by your heat transfer rate qx inspected at x minus the same surface area. Why? Because the same surface area applies to both the in and the out. Okay, but remember that it has to be inspected at x plus delta x, because we are talking about this particular heat in here. Then the accumulation in here is 0. Okay, this refers also to the heat loss. The heat loss from this particular area, the one with the red area registered in here. So the surface area is totally different for the conductions with this heat loss to the atmosphere. Okay, this heat loss to the atmosphere is 2 pi r. 2 pi r is the circumference of this circle in here, multiplied by the height of your shell. So the height of your shell element is delta x, and then multiplied by the overall heat transfer coefficients between your solid with the gas atmosphere. Okay, now it's very important that you check your unit again in here. Okay, I think it's my bad, I don't put in a unit in here, but you have to check the unit. So this is supposed to be meter square multiplied by joule per second meter square, because this is a heat flux. Heat flux meaning that the heat is divided, the heat rate per unit surface area. Heat rate meaning the joule per second. Okay, by having the definitions of rate, meaning that you have, it's basically per unit time. So it's joule per second meter square. So this whole balance have the same unit of joule per second. Likewise, you also want to also check the unit in here as well. Okay, what are this is supposed to be meter square multiplied by this probably joule per meter square Kelvin multiplied by Kelvin. So this is supposed to be joule per second as well in here. Okay. Then you do whatever the derivations that you need in here. Okay. You divide by delta x. In your calculus, you have the definitions of the derivative. This will be the definitions of the derivative. So whatever it is that are higher than higher by delta x, you put it on before. Then this will be you put it on the after, and then you divide by delta x. As you take the limit delta x approaching 0, you will have this ordinary differential equation. Now, this ordinary differential equation is first order ordinary differential equation in terms of the heat transfer rate. You have a Fourier's law of heat conduction in here. The Fourier's law of heat conduction in here states that the heat transfer rate in the x direction, so the heat transfer rate in this direction, will be equal to your thermal conductivity multiplied by the temperature gradient in the x direction. So meaning that if you don't have the temperature gradient in the x direction, then you will not have a heat transfer rate in the x direction. This sounds very simple, but you need to think physically. Okay, you need to think physically, because if there is no temperature gradient, then there will be no heat transfer. Then you can substitute this thing in, then you get something like this. This is a second order ordinary differential equation. All of you know that if you are dealing with the first order ordinary differential equations, you will have one constant. And that constant has to be defined from the physical condition. Okay? It's normally given in the system. Since you have a second order ordinary differential equations, you will have two constants. These two constants is something that need to be coming from the boundary conditions. So this boundary condition is something that we used to connect the mathematical expressions with your physical situation. Okay, so the boundary condition 1 is x equals 0, t is equal to t1. So you inspect your system again, you go back into your diagram. At this particular position at x equals 0 is basically the interface between your air and the solvent. You can take your temperature of the rod as equal to the T1 or the temperature of the solvent. Okay, so this is consistent with the assumption that we take earlier. Okay. The boundary condition 2 is at x equal L2, the temperature gradient will be equal to 0. Okay. So what we are talking about is at the top of the rod in here. So at this particular position, the temperature gradient can be assumed to be equal to 0. Okay, because I can assume that my Q, so my Q is my Fourier heat law of conduction. So the Qx at that particular position equal to 0. So meaning that there is no heat flux from your top surface to the air, right? There is no heat flux at all. So if you put it like as Qx at the top surface is equal to 0, that means your gradient at the particular point will be equal to 0, because your K cannot be 0. You agree with me? So that is the origin why your dt over dx will be equal to 0. So everybody get it up to this point? Any questions? Or is it boring like what I'm telling you up to this point? This is basically what transfer phenomena is, right? I just have to go down up to this level. Daniel, what do you think? Can you digest it up to this point, or is it or still difficult for you? Daniel, are you there? Okay.
Yes, sir. All good. All good.
Okay, so next comes the simplifications of your ordinary differential equation. So this up to this point onward is just your mathematical term. I think you should find no difficulties up to this point. Okay. Of course, some of you think that the chemical engineer is a chemist, right? You think that chemical engineering is chemistry, but it's actually no. Chemical engineer is just actually just about mathematics and physics. Okay, so it's a totally different misconception that the first year may have when they want to go to chemical engineer, I guess. Now, to simplify this thing further, you define another variable called y. Then because this t naught is a constant, so when you differentiate this t, then this t naught will be gone basically. Okay, so dy over dx will be equal to dt over dx. Okay, by putting it like this, you will get this one. Actually, I don't need to derive all of this because all of this is something that you can do by yourself, but I just want to go into the detail so that you know how you basically solve this particular problem. So I know that this particular term of dA exponential Rx is something that can be used to solve this thing. But the main point is that at this particular position, we don't know what are the value of R. Okay. Whereas this A also at this particular point, we don't know what it is. So we simply substitute this into these equations in here. And then we know that this R is actually just a root of this particular particular equations in here. Okay, this is basically parabolic equations in here, right? So we know that this have the solutions of this is the solution of this one. Okay, and then by adding a lot of steps again, I can show to you that this one has an equal form with this form in here. Okay, so you can either use this form in here, or you can either use this form in here. But it is much more convenient to use this form in here to solve the problem because it will make your life much more simpler. Much simpler. So I end up using this term in here that comes with two constant. So these two constant at this particular time, I don't know where it is. That means I need to substitute my boundary condition. Okay. So the boundary condition is what connects your mathematical expression with your physical situation. So let's go with the first boundary condition. The first boundary condition, x equal 0, t is equal t1. So I substitute the value of t with t1. I put it in, okay? And then I substitute the value of x equals 0 to here. Now we know that the cos hyperbolic of 0 is 1. The sin hyperbolic of 0 is 0, right? So your d is equal to t1 minus t0, correct? Now, your second boundary condition involves the derivative of the temperature. So you cannot run away from the derivative. You have to find out what is the derivative of the cos hx and the derivative of the sin hx. You follow what the derivation that I have in here. You have that the dt over dx is equal to this. You need to be careful when you derive, then this additional term will come up also in here. Okay? Then you substitute this value of L2 into this L2, and then your L2 you substitute in here, and then you substitute the value of 0 in here, and then you will be able to figure your E. Don't forget to substitute your D first into the equations. Every time you figure out something, then you substitute it to the original equation so that you don't end up with a lot of confusion. Okay, that's very important. Then once you get everything, you can simplify, then follow the derivative that I have in here, and then we have an identity for the hyperbolic cosinus and the sinus hyperbolic as well. So this one will be cos. Okay. Now, if I simplify this can become something like this and become like this, right? So essentially, our temperature profile in the top part of your rod from this particular point to this particular point will be described by these equations in here. Okay, this will be derived by these equations in here. Okay, and then I can derive the temperature derivative directly from these equations. I can get this one, or if I want to go and to prove the longer way, so I just utilize this one to derive, then I should have the same quantity of the derivative. So this one should be the same with this one in here. Okay, it's just me checking whether I end up with the correct derivations. Okay, Sarina, no problem, Sarina, it's okay. As long as you can rewatch it again in the recording later on, no problem at all. Okay. So after finding the temperature, we want to find the heat transfer rate again. The heat transfer rate in here is something that is described by these things in here. Okay. The heat flow through area pi r square at x equals 0 must be equal to the heat release into the atmosphere. So if you, yeah, no problem, Gladys. You're fine. You can join, and then hopefully you can replay it again on the part where you don't understand. So now you want to check what are the total heat that are being lost to the atmosphere. There are two ways for that. The first way is you can calculate the heat conduction at this particular point, and then you multiply by the area, by the surface area where that heat conduction applies at this particular point. So that will be the first option that we are doing now. Okay. The other alternative, if you want to make it as your homework, is that you can multiply the heat loss that in here by the total lateral surface of your cylinder, starting from this point to the top point. So imagine that you multiply that. If I have this one in here, you multiply the surface area for this for the upper part of the rod. Okay, that you multiply by the heat loss, So you integrate. You need to use an integration of the. You need to use an integration of the Qx over the whole surface area of your upper rod part. Okay, that will be the alternative. We will not discuss that, but if you want, you can find it, and you will definitely get the same quantity. So if we go with the first one, that means we want to find the heat flux at the position of x equals 0 multiplied by the pi r square, because the surface area at this particular position for the heat conduction is explained by the pi r square. Okay. I hope you all follow up to this point. Okay, and then we can substitute the Fourier's Fourier's law in heat of conduction into these equations, and then we simply plug in this dt over dx into this term in here. So minus k pi r square, and then you substitute this dt over dx, and then substitute the value x equal 0. Okay. After you substitute that particular value of x equals 0, then you will find out that you have the something called tangent hyperbolic ML2 comes out in here. Okay, then you can do an operation. So this will be m is equal m squared divided by m. Okay, and then if you do all these things in here, you will recover this particular form in here. Now, what is important is that we go back into the model 1 and compare our expressions with the model 1 expression. So you see the whole terms in here, and you compare it with this term in here. 2 pi r HGL to T1 minus T0. Okay, then you realize that there is one term that comes out in here, extra term. So this term in here is something that comes out from our model level 1. Right? You agree with me? You agree with me, Stephanie, up to this point? Can you see? Yeah? Okay. So this additional term in here is something that is different from model level 2 with model level 1. It's called Tangen hyperbolic ML2 divided by the ML2. Okay, this quantity in here is a function of the ML2. Okay, it will vary as ML2 goes from very low value to a very high value in here. Okay, and the value varies from 1 to 0.01. So meaning that your heat transfer rate in the model level 2 is always smaller than the heat transfer rate in model level 1. Okay, you guys get it up to this point. So I'm going very detailed with you guys today, but so you can understand what this is. Okay. Now I want you to give me a guess why is it it is lower than the model level 1. Let me ask, for example, Sarina, do you have any guess why this quantity is lower than the level model 1, than the model level 1? So meaning this will always be lower than that level, than level 1 model. Why is that? Anyone want to try? Well, anyone want to guess why? How about Saif? Saif, do you want to try?
I think, sir, it's because in the first level we are assuming that the heat can transfer immediately from like the rod to the atmosphere, while in the second level it's going through the process of from the liquid level all the way to the top and then transferring to the atmosphere, something like that.
Why this is lower is because of this, Saif. Because at the first model, we assume that the temperature from this point to this point are the same as T, right? So the heat transfer rate
Yes.
at this particular, when you integrate everything, then the heat transfer rate, then there is no lower temperature point. Everything is uniformly high. Whereas at this
Yes.
particular point, we have a temperature that varies from this point to this point. So the temperature at this particular point will be different with the temperature at this particular point. So the answer is that because of the temperature gradient, then the overall heat transfer rate will be much lower in the level 2 model. And then that is described by this so-called efficiency factor. So the efficiency factor in here is called Tangen HML2 divided by ML2. Okay, then this can also be expressed in such a way. So the actual heat loss divided by this one, and therefore the actual heat loss in here will be a function of your efficiency factor, and your efficiency factor in here is a function of your ML2. Your ML2 in here varies. So at this particular point of the ML equal to, for example, 10 in here, it will vary. Tangen HML2 will be a linear functions of your ML2, but as your ML2 start on getting very small, it will approach 1. So your model level 1 will only be valid if the Tangen HML2 divided by ML2 has a value near to 1. So meaning that only your model 1 will be valid only if your ML2 is much smaller than this particular value in here. Okay, so that is the key take in here. So ML2, when will ML2 becomes very small? ML2 becomes very small, then you have to go into your when this ML2 is become ML2 is much less than unity, okay, and it behave like 1 over ML2 when ML2 is very large. So this is physically achieved when the rod thermal conductivity is large. Okay, because your M is a function of this. It's a root square of the 2Hg divided by Kr. So this M will only be small if your K is high. Okay, and then the segment exposed to the atmosphere is short. So meaning that the higher the model level that you are going, the more your insights can come. But of course, solving the higher level model will be more difficult than solving the lower level model. By going into the model one level higher, you will be able to find the conditions where the lower level model is valid. Okay, that's basically the take away lesson that you can get. So like what I told you again, you can confirm as your homework. Try if you integrate this one whether you will have the same result with this or not. And you have to have the same result. Okay, if not, then something is not correct. Up to this point, level 2 model, everybody get it? It's already 1 hour and I keep on talking. Is it interesting or is it boring, phenomena up to this level? At this moment of time, probably still not boring for you, but later on it probably get boring later. Any questions?
Sir, it's interesting, but very difficult.
Well, it's not that difficult. It's just you are not used to it at the moment of time. So, but if you keep on exercising, then you can. I'm sure you can. Okay. If there is no questions, then I shall go into the level 3 model, but I will not go into the detail. Because for those that are interested, you can go into the detail by yourself, right? Okay. Let's go one level higher. So in the level 2, we relax the assumption A only for the rod part from between the interface of the air to the interface of the solvent and the air to the top. Now in the level 3, we make it more interesting by assuming that the bottom part of the rod is also a distributed model as well. So meaning that the temperature on the bottom part of the rod will be distributed. So the temperature in here will be different over this thing. The temperature in here will also be different as well. Now, we know that this problem is a problem of the heat removal of the hot solvent from here to here. So we can take by assumptions that T1 is higher than this T1. So this T1 is the temperature at this particular shell element. This T2 is the temperature at this particular shell element. And then the T0 is the ambient atmosphere temperature, right? Everything else is the same. So you just need to make two different shell elements. The one on the bottom shell element, the one on the top shell element. Okay? Then you end up with two second-order ordinary differential equations. The one that describes the temperature at the bottom part of your rod, the one that describes the temperature at the, so you have two basically. One is in here, the other one is in here. Okay, so you have two second-order ordinary differential equations. Then you just follow the same equations in here. Okay, except now because you have two second-order ordinary differential equations, then you will have four boundary conditions because two constants come from the first ODE, two constants come from the second ODE. Okay, so the first BC in here is the same, the one that you get in here. Okay, there is no heat flux at this particular point. There is no heat flux at the particular point. But how about these two boundary conditions in here? These two boundary conditions in here is just referring to the continuity of the temperature and the continuity of the heat flux in here. Okay. So the temperature at this particular point should be the same for for the upper part and the bottom part of your rod. And also the heat flux at this particular point should be the same for your upper part of the rod with the bottom part of the rod. Okay. I hope everybody get it up to this point. So your mathematical expression has to reflect the physical situation, and the physical situation is something that you can get from your physical intuition or from the book or from the rational sense of you as a chemical engineer, right? Then everything else is just a mathematical problem. Okay, so now we have this variable called n, and then if we substitute everything, we do all the simplification. It's a bit complicated in here, I know, but I will not go through the derivations, but I will just show that this basically take about 8 pages relative to the how many pages that we have in here, relative to the let's say probably 5 pages. So in here we need about 8 pages to come up and derive everything. Okay, so we derive this one, we derive that one. So we derive that one. Okay. We continue in here. This one is a bit complex. I checked through everything. I think it's correct. Okay. Because this one is I derive everything else. I derive everything from the part that is described from this book of Duong Du in here. You can see that the final answer is supposed to be correct for this level 2, but the book does not go in detail. The book just give us this value in here, this value in here, and then this value in here. But in here we basically derive everything also. So this T1, the temperature at the bottom part of the rod will be equal to this. The temperature at the upper part of the rod will be explained by this. Okay. And then likewise, we also find the heat transfer rate again. The heat transfer rate is coming from here. Okay, you go through everything derived again. Then you suddenly see, after you see the final expression in here, you see that this is similar to the first model. This part with this part. And then this part in here will be what level you get from the level 2 model. But the third part of the model gives you something else again in here. This part in here, 1 over 1 plus m tangen h ml2 divided by n tangen h ml1. So the higher the level of the modeling, it will give you the validity range for your previous lower model. Okay, so that's the takeaway from this particular modeling here. I don't think I will go into these particular derivations up to this. This will come for your assignments, like what I'm telling you. So your assignments will be something long like this. But in your take-home test 1 and take-home test 2, it will not be something long like this. But I want you to understand, for example, how to connect your boundary conditions with your mathematical expression. How did you formulate your mathematical expression like this? Okay, and something like that. For all the purposes of the transfer phenomena, we will generally stop at level 2. Okay, I can make it go to a higher level, but I think that's not for an undergrad level. Undergrad level, it's supposed to be for a graduate level. Okay, so now I will not go into the level 4, but I can tell you what happened with level 4. So I just go through a little bit in detail. So in level 3, in level 1, 2, and 3, level 1 is the easiest. Level 1 is the LAM model. Level 2 is basically the distributed model, right? But that is only taking into consideration the temperature variation in the axial direction, meaning as a function of the distance from the interface of the air with the water, from the interface of the solvent with the air to the top, or from here to the bottom. So that is the axial distance. But in the level 3 model, we no longer assume that the rod has a much longer dimension with respect to the radial. Okay, if we take the assumptions that the rod is much longer than the radial directions, we only care about the temperature variations in the axial direction. But if the rod becomes much more fat, so this one becomes much more fat, then we have to take into account the radial distribution as well of the temperature. Okay, so the radial distribution of the temperature in here, meaning that we have to also consider the heat transfer in the radial directions in here. So the shell element will have a different shape. It will have a thickness of delta X and a thickness of delta R. Okay. If we do it like this, then it will be more complex because we will end up with the partial differential equation. So partial differential equation is something that you need to solve using, if you cannot solve it analytically, using a Laplace transform, or you can try to use approximation method like as an asymptotic solution, or you can use something called asymptotic orthogonal collocation or method of weighted residuals, basically. Or otherwise, you can go into the numerical solution, and then you have to end up with the MATLAB to solve this thing. I will not discuss in here, but the BC in here is basically talking about the BC that are required to solve this thing in here. Okay, so now you have a term in here that is basically a second order in here and a second order in here. So meaning you have to have a 4 boundary conditions. At R equals 0, the temperature gradient should be equal to 0. So this is a symmetric condition. Okay, at R equal R at this particular position, then your heat flux will be equal to the heat loss to the atmosphere. That's why you multiply by this. At X equals 0, your T will be equal to T1. And then at X equal L2, your heat flux should be equal to 0. Okay, so if you continue with this and you really want to solve these things, then you will get this analytical solution in terms of the infinite series. Okay, that comes with the Bessel functions in here of the order of the 0 order and the first order. Okay, I will not go through these things, but it's basically just showing the level for the different level modeling and how to solve that thing. Okay, so before I go into the next example, any questions up to here? Everybody follows me up to this point. So what do you think of your transport phenomena up to this point? Is it different with your previous heat transfer? With your fluid mechanics? Alvin? Or probably Jonathan? Are you there still with me? Hello? Alvin, Jonathan? Should I carry on into the next example, or it's too much already? Guys, who wants me to carry on?
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah. Who wants me to carry on? Just raise your hands up. Otherwise, if people get lost, then there is no. Sarina, Evangeline, Stephanie, okay. Okay, yeah, I will not. I think I will just carry on for another 10 to 15 minutes. I've been talking for 1 hour, 10 minutes already. Hopefully, everybody gets something from my talk. Okay, so that will be one example that I can tell you in detail. Another example is the problem of a cooling of a fluid flowing in a circular pipe. So in this particular model, in this figure in here, you have two different model. The first one is on the top. The second one is on the bottom. You see those figure in there. So the first one is assuming a plug flow model. So now we need to look into the title of the model in here. So it's a problem of a cooling of a fluid flowing in a circular pipe. So when we said about cooling, it means that we are cooling the fluid. So the fluid must be having a higher temperature than the pipe itself. If not, then the problem will not be called a cooling of a fluid, right? So at this, go back again into the diagram in here. And then we assume that at this particular position, the temperature is T0. Okay? If we want to go with the simplest model, there is only two models in here. The first one is the level 1 plug flow model. Okay? The plug flow model in here is similar to the level 2 in the problem that I just discussed, because this one is not a lump model. This one is actually a distributed model, right? Okay, so we assume, to make our life simple, that the fluid velocity profile is plug shape. What do you mean by the plug shape? Meaning that the velocity does not vary as a function of radius. So you have two coordinates in here. You have the radial coordinates and the axial coordinates in here. If we take that the velocity profile is the same in all position, radial position, then it makes our life easy. But this can only be satisfied by the turbulent flow condition. So you learn in your fluid mechanics that your Reynolds number should be higher than 2100 for you to have a turbulent flow condition, right? And then the second assumption is that the physical properties, density, specific heat, thermal conductivity, and etc. of the fluid remain constant. So this is reasonable if the fluid, if the tube is not too long or the temperature difference is not too severe. Okay, you cannot assume that the physical properties are constant if the temperature range is too large. Okay, now and then we assume that the wall temperature is constant and uniform. So whatever the position of the whatever the position you take in the pipe wall in here, or this position, or the position, or the position, that position, that it doesn't change, is constant at TW, and this TW is lower than the T not in here, in order for the heat transfer to occur from the fluid to the pipe. Okay, the inlet temperature is constant and uniform. It does not vary in the air direction at the value of T0. Okay. And then for the first case, we assume that the thermal conduction of heat along the axis is small relative to convection. So you have two modes of the heat transfer in here. The first one is by conduction. Conduction is the molecular heat transport. It's based on the velocity gradient. Because the velocity gradient in the axial direction is negligible. Why? Because you take basically a flat velocity profile. Right? So you take it as a negligible, then you only have the fluid motion. The fluid motion, if there is no fluid motion, meaning that your fluid will not flow from here to here. So you have a bulk fluid flow. Everything that is related with the bulk fluid flow is called the convective heat contribution. Right? That means in the axial directions, you only care about the convective contribution. So there will be a convective contribution in, convective contribution out, and the heat loss to the pipe wall surrounding your fluid shell element. So what are the difference between the example that I discussed in here with the example that I discussed before in terms of the shell element? The shell element in here is the shell element of your fluid, water, whereas the shell elements in here is the shell element that is made of a part of your rod. So in different cases, your shell element will take a different phase depending on the system that you are interested on. Okay, I hope you understand up to this point. I will not go through the details in here, but the main point are the same. So you have to go through the unit. You have to check where the heat flux working on which area it is. Okay, and then divide, and then you get a simple ordinary differential equations for the first model in here. Okay. For the second model, on the other hand, you will have a different assumptions. Now, the flow is no longer turbulent. When the flow is no longer turbulent, meaning your velocity profile will be parabolic, like this. This is, I think, something that you learn from your fluid mechanics, and this one also we will go through deriving these things in your first example. I think on your second example, I think next week or the week after next week. Okay, so since there is a variations of the velocity in the axial direction, in the radial direction, that means the heat transport in the r direction cannot be neglected. So meaning, if I blow up and cut this shell element into two, I want to give a closer look into what kind of the heat flux that are working in your shell element, then it will be this one. So you have something that comes in radially and comes out radially, and you have a heat conduction in actually, heat conduction out actually, the convective heat flux that comes in actually, the convective heat flux that comes out actually. Okay, and then you have this film thickness is in the thickness of delta Z and delta R in here. Okay. So all the other assumptions should be taken the same as well, but now you have, since you have two different directions, that means you end up with the partial differential equations like in here. So these partial equations can be solved using a method that are discussed in the Richard Gerrais and Duong Du's book in Applied Mathematics and Modeling. So that this part is basically something that we call as a classical analysis that all the chemical engineers are quite familiar on. Okay, except I think we don't quite do this kind of research anymore because everything that has been done in this area is already established already. I think I start on losing my sound. I've been talking for 1 hour 20 minutes straight. Any questions up to this point? Anybody? I think that will be all that I want to discuss today, and then we will go into the concepts of the momentum transport next week. I want you guys to complete this. Rusiraka is no more in here, huh? I want you to complete this as soon as possible, and then start looking at all the videos as well before you go into the next week drop-in session. For next week drop-in session, there will be no sessions on Wednesday because there will be an accreditation for chemical engineers on Wednesday, but we will have another longer session like this on Thursday, okay, at 1 p.m. Hopefully at 1 p.m. Hopefully, I hope the accreditation has finished already. Where I will use the first hour to discuss the momentum transport concepts, and then hopefully I can go a little bit into the example for the flow of flow above the flat plate of length L and width W, basically, to give you a sense of how to apply that momentum transport equations and momentum transport concept into your problem. Okay, I would encourage you again to have a look into your assignment 1. Okay, start as early as possible because that will be very lengthy, I think, to solve, because it have a 25% of the weighted to your unit. I think that's all from me for today. Sarina, any questions? I'll just go one by one. Sarina, any questions? Sarina, are you there? Sakya, any questions? Hello? Alvin, any questions up to this point?
No, sir.
How about Daniel? Daniel, any questions up to this point?
No questions so far, sir.
Saif?
So far, no questions, sir. Thank you.
Gladys? Gladys, are you there? Serena? Serena, are you there? Jonathan? Any questions?
All good, sir.
Stephanie?
All good. Thank you, sir.
Evangeline?
No questions for now, sir.
Everything clear, right? Supposedly. I tried to explain everything already, right? Okay. I hope you get something else from what I did already. So that one, my 1 hour and 20 minutes of talking can give you something, hopefully. I'll see you again next Thursday. Okay. Take care, stay well, and we'll catch up again soon. Okay. See you.
Thank you, sir.